Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start today's video with the tale of petty revenge. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Relieve me late, then expect me to clock in early for you? Ha! I work at a 24/7 grocery store. Generally, if you work the late shift, you're scheduled to go home at 10:30 p.m. when the overnight cashier comes in. I work the late shift about twice a week. I have a love-hate relationship with this shift. While it's quiet and slow, which I prefer so I can get other stuff done, I'm the sole cashier after 9 p.m. So if it does get busy, I'm screwed. Now, last night I was scheduled to work 4:30 to 10:30. We were slammed. I've never seen it so busy on a Sunday night. No biggie, most chores can wait. My only complaint was that I knew I had to be back at 7 a.m. That's a one-shift turnaround. I was dreading the fact that I'd only get a few hours of sleep due to commuting home and back in the morning, but still doable. 10:30 rolls around and there's no sign of my relief. Again, no biggie. I'm unfortunately used to the overnighters being a couple minutes late. However, my store has a policy, thanks to OSHA, that states if we're on a 6-hour shift that goes over by 8 minutes, so being clocked in for 6 hours and 8 minutes total, you're required to take a lunch. So this means clocking out for lunch, hanging out for half an hour, then clocking back in from lunch, and then going directly out to go home. Ridiculous. My relief didn't show up during my 7-minute cushion. I finally got the night manager to come up, explain the situation, including the fact that I had to be back in the morning. He said he'd take over until she got there. But the B-turd made me take a lunch at 10:45 at night. So I was stuck there until 11:15. I was so effing angry. Not necessarily at him, because he's just following policy, but at this B who's constantly late and has now cost me at least an hour of sleep. I didn't see her come in as I was out chain smoking on my lunch, but I could hear the manager complain at her at least. On to the revenge. As I said, I had to be back to work at 7 in the morning. And I'm by no means a morning person anyway, but I dragged my grumpy butt to work and was there by 6:30. I like to be a little early so I can grab a breakfast and have a smoke. This time, however, I simply grabbed a donut and went to the front end. There's my late overnighter struggling with a full line of people. I didn't say a word, just sat on the bench and ate my donut. She tried to gesture for me to clock in and help, but I acted like I didn't notice. She finally gets through the line and makes up some quip about how I must not be a morning person because I'm not my usual smiley self. B, don't even. I grimaced and told her, in fact, I'm not. Then this effing chick starts telling me how she got called in last night, even though it was her night off and she's so tired. She didn't realize I had worked the late shift and knew for a fact that she was supposed to work that night. Urge to kill, rising. Then she has the nerve to ask if I'd mind clocking in early so she can leave and get something to eat before going to bed. Uncharacteristically, I flat out said, no. I'm usually a doormat at work, relieving people early since I'm there anyway, never complaining about hours to coworkers, and generally just very friendly. She looked kind of hurt and started to beg and whine, and I just laid into her. I explained that I was there last night, she was supposed to relieve me, and didn't bother showing up until 20 minutes past the start of her shift, making me take a bullcrap lunch and only getting 4.5 hours of sleep. And then she has the nerve to ask me for a favor. And I pointed out that I knew her story of getting called in on her night off was bullcrap. She slunk back to her register and pouted, while I literally sat and watched the clock until it said 6:59:59 and clocked in for my shift. If I had less of a work ethic, I'd have made her wait until 7:07. But I'm not about to get written up for petty revenge. She tried apologizing as she was leaving, but I wouldn't hear it. Had she had a reason to be late and didn't try to full-on lie to me with some effing sob story, I'd have been more understanding. If she's late relieving me again, I'm talking to the manager. I'm a doormat no effing longer. Finally, thank you. Someone gets revenge on them, then explains what they did wrong and why they are the target of said revenge. And our second story. Narcissistic MILF attacks sister-in-law. So my husband and I have been together for 11 years. My husband's family is a lot bigger than mine, which I love as I grew up as an only child. We're also childless, so our nieces and nephews are our life. My husband's sister has 4 kids, and currently they share a 5-bedroom house with their mother and father who have major health problems. My sister-in-law stays home and does a majority of the housework and cares for the kids, while husband goes to work and comes home and sits around all the rest of the day for the most part. He's gotten better, but as a result of his bad habits, he's gained a lot of weight. The kids, especially the older ones, follow his example. My father-in-law still works in spite of his health issues. He's had 2 heart attacks and has 7 stents just since I've known him. My mother-in-law has major health issues from diabetes, lupus, congestive heart failure, etc. She also has mental bipolar, PTSD, and schizoaffective. My mother is also a blazing narcissist. Nothing she does is ever her fault, or does she take responsibility. When March and everything happened, we were extra careful, staying distant and following mask guidelines to the letter. We still do this to this day. As it got unbearably hot, we wanted to see each other and have a socially distant cookout bonfire. We planned and I think did pretty great, and decided since we all stay home and don't go out, doing these in the backyard was a great way to see all the family, 12 in total. We never went inside the house. I provided enough hand sanitizer to drown someone. We took every neurotic precaution. My mother-in-law took this get-together as a slight. She then got mad because we'd gone to the store to pick up the pre-ordered food. She started stating that we were wanting to kill her and that anyone without masks should be in jail or shot, which I'm all game for masks, but if people want to be idiots and F up the world, they should think twice, but I'm not going to go out of my way to hurt them. I'm taking care of me and my family. So she saw our disagreements with her stance as a personal slight. I ended up walking away to keep from saying something stupid that pissed her off even more, so she personally attacked me. I wanted to scream at her because I hadn't been able to see my parents since March due to my mom having cancer and the risk of normal stuff is high. To accuse me of not taking every precaution hurt. So I told my husband I didn't want to go over unless I knew she wasn't there. Flash forward to our niece's birthday the night before we socially distanced at a bonfire again. I chose not to go. Mother-in-law decided to attack the whole family, attacking me who wasn't there to defend myself and all of her children, threatened to leave her husband, the works. My husband tried to walk away. He ended up blowing up and saying something he shouldn't, directed at how his mom treats his sister. My mother-in-law, not so secretly, and my father-in-law too, mention all the time they think their daughter and her husband are horrible parents. My sister-in-law lost it. A fight erupted and my mother-in-law said she was moving out because she had the money to do so. So sister-in-law said, "Go ahead, no one's stopping you." So mother-in-law started telling anyone that could hear that her daughter was kicking her out and wanted her to catch anything and die, which her daughter doesn't want. She was just tired of the manipulative attitude. They ended up sitting down and hashing things out. We thought it was settled and they'd moved on, in spite of a few "your mommy wants to kick Grammy out of the house" comments to the grandkids. Then my husband and I were scrolling through Facebook and saw his mom posted publicly on a post about people being ungrateful, that her daughter was ungrateful, and how she gave up all she had to raise her grandkids, that her daughter is kicking her out with nowhere to go, and that she refused to protect her from sickness. His sister got a hold of the post, printed it off, after explaining to her kids that this wasn't healthy and what their grandmother did wasn't nice, posted it on the door with a note saying, "I'm protecting you now," with a sad face, taped up. They then packed up and left, and are now staying at my house until they can find a place, but they left mother-in-law and father-in-law to stew. Wow, that's an incredibly measured response. Definitely the right step to take. Your sister-in-law has a pretty good head on her shoulders. Sorry you have to deal with all that. And our last story. Don't want to help us pay to get your tree off our house? Well, okay. So this happened a little over 6 years ago. I live in the Northeast, and Hurricane Sandy hit my area pretty hard. We got lucky in that we didn't have a lot of damage to our house itself. Our fences were destroyed, and that was pretty much it. Except a 50 to 60-foot pine tree from our crotchety neighbor's property fell on top of our house. There was no structural damage, luckily, but the tree was huge and definitely got in the way enough to make getting in and out of the house inconvenient. Our homeowner's insurance would pay to move the tree off of our house and onto the neighbor's yard, since the tree was theirs, but the neighbor would have to pay out of pocket to actually have the tree disposed of. The tree removal service that our insurance sent us told us it'd cost an extra $200 to have the tree disposed of, as opposed to the usual $600, because they'd already be on site. So my mom, out of the kindness of her heart, called our neighbors to ask if he'd be willing to pay us that $200, since again the tree belonged to them, plus an extra $100 or so to help with the insurance deductible, effectively saving them 300 smackaroos. Before even considering how this arrangement would benefit them, the husband berated my mom for begging them for money to deal with a problem that wasn't theirs to deal with. Mama Bear took this in stride and didn't even try to change his mind. After all, she didn't have to pay to get the tree disposed of, because either way it was going to be removed from our house, so she just told the tree service to lay the tree in the neighbor's yard for them to deal with. We got an angry call the next day asking why we didn't have the tree taken away, and my mom told the neighbor that he had the opportunity to save $300, but he didn't want it. So they ended up having to pay $600 to get another crew to come back out to the house and take the tree out of there. It's also worth noting that the tree destroyed the fence between our two properties, which belonged to the neighbors. The original fence was short and really only served to mark the property line, but after this fiasco, they put up a solid 7-foot fence. I guess because being able to see into our yard reminded them of the money they could have saved. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.